Chapter 5 Sri Narayan Ashram, Dadi Agiri State, Bombay. Sannyasi and disciple of Vedashrama Swami Tarakamat Durga Ghat Kashi, residing at Vaman Mat, Gangapuri Vai, Satara district, aged 58, 23rd September 1936. I knew Sai Baba, that is, heard the name and the greatness of Sai Baba in 1910 from Das Ganu Maharaja's Kirtan. I asked him, is Sai Baba living? He said yes, at Shirdi. In 5 days of that, I went to Shirdi and saw Sai Baba. In 6 months thereafter, I paid Baba 9 visits. I often went to him in later years also. I was then in service in the customs department and continued in it till 1926, when I retired on pension after 31 years. 1927-1930, I spent in Narmada Pradakshina. In 1931, I took sannyas, changing my former name Tosar to the present one. I came first under a guru's influence in 1895, whom I saw in a dream. When I went to Shirdi in 1910 and had my contact with Sai Baba, I found that he was the same as the Guru who gave me first inspiration without any words in my dream in 1895. Then I passed after 1918 into the charge of Vasudevananda Saraswati of Garudeshwar on the banks of Narmada near Nanded in Gujarat. Though Vasudevananda Saraswati left the flesh in 1915, he had connection with Baba. I believe that Baba has left me in his charge. So, Vedashrama Swami of Kashi, Tarakamat, Durga Ghat, gave me Diksha in 1931. I mostly stay at Vai. As for my internal progress and Sai Baba's influence on me, it is hardly a thing to be described. Sai Baba had different ways of dealing with different people. He was the center, and to each man he darted a separate radius. Most cared for external things only, and hardly any came to him for the highest spiritual benefit of Atmanishtha. Hari Sitaram Dikshit, Chandrokar, and Dabholkar were probably those who came close enough to him to receive high teaching. Yet, it is a question if any of them got into Atmanishtha or anywhere near that. Baba had made Dikshit read Eknath's 2 works, as he was but a beginner in the religious field and had to develop his bhakti devotion chiefly. Of course, immediate proximity was not needed for development under Baba. When I was at Shirdi, I would mostly go and sit away by myself in the Sathevada and not be at the mosque. Even at the Vada, one is under Baba's direct influence. As for Baba's own state, that is a thing one can get a glimpse of from some facts. Baba had a way of touching with his palm the head of the devotee who went to him. There was no adhikari evidently to receive everything Baba could give, and thus there was none to succeed to his position. But his touch did convey certain impulses, forces, ideas, etc. Sometimes he pressed his hand heavily on the head as though he was crushing out some of the lower impulses of the devotee. Sometimes he tapped, sometimes he made a pass with the palm over the head, etc. Each had its own effect, making remarkable difference in the sensations or feelings of the devotee. Baba's touch was one means. Apart from that, he would invisibly operate on the nature of the devotee and effect a great change on him. He graciously conveyed to me without any words the feeling that differences between various souls, etc., that is, all differences were unreal, that the one real thing is that which underlies all. This was after my first visit in 1913 or 1914 perhaps. But Baba never spoke out this truth so far as I know. Obviously, there was no competent adhikari who had to be spoken to in that way. I have not given out my experience though Mr. Dikshit and Mr. Dabolkar asked me for it. I have never heard Baba utter Mahavakyas or say things of Sankaracharya's Atmabodha or Viveka Chudamani or anything on those lines. When I went first in 1910, no crowds had come. Baba was mostly silent then. Very soon, Bombay crowds began to pour upon Shirdi. Then Baba was being pressed into new habits and ways. Devotees, to suit their own tastes, forced numerous forms and observances on Baba and made him a mere man shining with the aid of the shows they arranged for him. His real greatness shone by itself without words and did observances and pomp and was shut out by these. These reduced Baba to earthly grandeur. Baba spoke to me only a few words, but they were direct and plain words. He did not talk to me in parables. He began to employ parable in teaching the numerous people that flocked to him. There is a great deal of parallelism between Sri Sai of Shirdi and Akkalkot Maharaj, and that can be found by reading the life of Akkalkot Maharaj. The latter also hardly ever spoke of Advaita realization. He was a greater Karmata, that is, follower of rigid Karma Marga, the paths of work, and insister on forms than Sai Baba. Baba was trying to push people just a few steps above their level. Das Ganu told me that Baba referred to one Daji Maharaj, a saintly Grihastha Brahmin who lived at the village Dangar Takdi near Nanded in Nizam state, as my brother. That Maharaj passed away in 1934. He was practicing Gayatri Purascharan. He said one day in 1914 at Dangar Takdi, "Yesterday Sai Baba came here in the form of Maruti and there was a great rumbling noise at his arrival. My father and I are Maruti worshippers. I installed a new Maruti image and got a temple built and consecrated in 1918 at Villeparle, Hanuman Street. I had to name the god and I called it Sai Hanuman, remembering that Sai was Hanuman. I gifted that temple by deed to my brother. The very day this temple was consecrated at Villeparle, Baba gave, it seems, rupees 25 to a Brahmin named Vazi and made him perform Satyanarayana Puja at Shirdi. People connect these two events. When I was first visiting Shirdi, I was heterodox and could hardly be taken for a Brahmin. Regard for samskaras grew on me. I never cared for siddhis. I seldom attended Baba's Chaudi procession even when I was at Shirdi. I was desirous of getting sannyas even before I got married. I actually got it only in 1931. But the way was being paved. My mother and wife are living, but I have no issue. Two children were born and they passed away after a few days of existence on this earth. One in 1900, the other in 1915. Brahmacharya is essential to sannyasa. The fact that a wife is living in the house is no impediment to my brahmacharya. If I look upon my mother like any other human being without special attachment, that is no hindrance to sannyasa. The samskara of going through sannyasa gave me a great impetus. Sai Baba never spoke to me, or so far as I remember, to anyone else about the desirability, necessity, or disadvantages of a life of sannyasa. About changes of caste, ashrama, guru, methods of sadhana, caste observances, etc., he had one and the same advice or prescription. Each must stick to his lot and get on. The Guru, after all, is a medium, a means to realize your own self. He gives you a push, and then you have to exert yourself and go to higher and hold to your height. Sai Baba thus was a medium, though one responsible for considerable and momentous advance in my spiritual history. Before I went to Shirdi, one Vinayak Bhatt Shadle, supported by the Kolhapur state, whom I met in 1900 and who had made me read bits of Yoga Vasishtha with jest, was also a medium for me. With one help at one time and a second at another, one has to go on steadily and realize the self.